A very good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America on Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. And this is Livetalk Diaspora Forum. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jonga Kandemiri.
We would like to inform our listeners that because of the coronavirus pandemic, tonight on the Diaspora Forum, we are not able to give you our usual show since we are broadcasting from our homes.
Thanks for joining us. You are listening to Studio 7 Live Talk. This evening, we are going to talk about the rise in COVID-19 in the country and also the deaths. This after, as of yesterday, 23,239 cases have been recorded since March in Zimbabwe, following new cases of coronavirus that were detected yesterday of 942 and 23 deaths. We are also going to talk about the impeachment of President Donald Trump. As we speak right now, members of the House in America are debating the second impeachment of Trump following an insurrection at the Capitol that is said to have been instigated by President Trump.
Unlike in the previous impeachment trial 13 months ago, this time some Republican members of Congress and the House appear to be in favor of the move, despite Trump's term coming to an end in a few days' time on the 20th, when Democrat Joe Biden will be inaugurated.
And in Zimbabwe, as I mentioned earlier, we are talking of the COVID-19 deaths and the whole world. And as of this month alone, we know that it's causing havoc in the country. And we now have 551 people who have succumbed to COVID-19. And the country is experiencing an unprecedented number of cases, averaging almost 1,000 a day.
Yebo kambezulu kandaba siyadibana njalo kuhlelo lwethu lwe-Livetalk Diaspora Forum lamhlanje ke sixoxa ke ngodaba lwegciwane le-coronavirus eselithethe imphefumulo yabantu abaningi elizweni. Siyazi ukubana sebedlula ke 500 abantu asebebulewe yi-COVID-19. Sikhangele njalo lo daba sizakhangela udaba lokususwa esikhundleni kukamongameli Donald Trump ngomthetho othiwa impeachment. Siyazi ukubana lokho ngokwesivili ukwenzakala kuke kwayenzakala kunyanga ezedlula ezili-10 ezedluleyo lapho okwenziwe khona imizamo efanayo, kodwa ukakathesi okwenza kube kungani laba kubandla lama-Republicans labo bathi bazaphathisa ukuthi sikhuluma nje kulodaba lokuvukela ukwenziwa ngabantu abasekela umongameli Trump. Yikho ke ukubangela ukubana abantu bethi hayi okwakathesi kumele uTrump ahambe lanxa kusele nje amalanga amalutshwana ukubana umbuso wakhe ufike ekugcineni kungene ke umongameli omutsha umnumzana Joe Biden. Konke lokhu sizaba sixoxa lakho sile ngcwethi kwezempilakahle udokotela uFrank Guni. Sizaba silabo labanye abafana labo Mringayi labo bakhona bazabe besiphathisa ke kuhlelo lwethu. Jonga
hongo vadiwe vateereri nevatariri, nhasi muchirongwa tiri kutarisa kukwira kwaita uwandu hwevanhu vari kubatwa nechirwere cheCovid-19 muZimbabwe pamwe chete nepasi rose, uyewo uwandu hwevanhu vari kushaya kuburikidza nechirwere ichochi. Tiri kuona kuti kusvika pazuva ranezuro uwandu hwevanhu vabatwa neCovid-19 muZimbabwe hwasvika pa23,239, kuchitiwo vanokwana kuita 942 ndo vanhu vakawanikwa vaine chirwere ichi nezuro. Vanhu vanokwana kuita 23 kana kuti 23 vachifa kubva kuCovid-19. Tiri kubatawo zvakare nyaya yekupomerwa mhosva kuri kuitwa mutungamiri wenyika muno muAmerica vaPresident Donald Trump yekunzi vakapeshedzera vanhu kuti vange ipanduka kana kuratidzira zvine mhirizhonga pamuzinda weparamende pacapital muamerica. Kupomerwa kwaTrump mhosva kunogona kuti vakawanikwa vaine mhosva iyoyo vosiyiswa basa kana kusiya chigaro. Tichiona kuti vasarurwa nemazuva manomwe chete kuti basa ravo ringe vachisiya chigaro, basa richipera pachigadzwa mutungamiri mutsva vanove vaJoe Biden vakakunda musarudzo vakamirira kugadzwa. Vanenge vachizogadzwa musi wa20 mwedzi uno, rinove svondo rinouya musi wechitatu. Patiri kutaura kudai, dare reparamende muAmerica kana kuti remarepresentative vari pakati pekupomera impeachment, pachiita kuti mapoka ose emuparamende, mapato ose, kuti bato ravaTrump reRepublican Party pamwechete nebato rinopikisa muparamende reDemocratic Party vari kunzi vamiriri veparamende ivavo vari kuti vachavhota kubva kumativi ose, asi hatizive kuti vachavhota neuwando hwakadii, asi vari kuti vachavhota kuti vaTrump vange vachiroverwa nemhosva. Ndo nyaya dzimwe dzatiri kutarisa iye nhasi, Chris.
Jonga njengokutsho kwethu ke lamhlanje sile ndaba ezimbili ezimqoka. Ngikhuluma nje silaye omunye wethu Dr. Frank Guni, udokotela Frank Guni nguye ke esizaqala ngaye ukuthi sixoxe laye kuhlelo lwethu. Udokotela Guni, Dokotela siyakwamukela kuhlelo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, Doctor, we have seen the rising cases of coronavirus in Zimbabwe and of course throughout the whole world. There have been many reasons that have been attributed to this rise, primarily the season of giving, the season of Christmas. As some are saying, it's because many people were meeting during that time. And what is your take? What do you think is the cause of this rise in the figures?
Well, Mr. Gande, you're right in saying there are several reasons. But let me caution to say we haven't actually seen the new numbers arising from the Christmas and New Year's festive season. So in terms of numbers, we haven't seen nothing yet. More and more people are going to come out positive following the recent Christmas and New Year's holidays. Well, going back to the primary reasons, there is something called fatigue. In this case, we are talking of coronavirus fatigue. People are getting the same messages and they are not seeing leadership in our country, in Zimbabwe, and even here in the United States, taking the COVID infection seriously. They are not leading by example, and that's leading to a lax in human behavior. Coronavirus, just like other viral infections, is a behavioral problem. It follows human behavior. Therefore, if people are not observing basic public health regulations, then we are going to see more and more new infections arising. Focusing on Zimbabwe, the key reason why we are seeing a higher number of new infections when the lockdown measures were scaled down, people were able to move within cities and from cities to rural places and vice versa. That enabled people who were carrying the infection to move from point A to point B or to several places and thus spreading the virus. We also saw an influx of people coming into Zimbabwe with the opening of the borders. And even prior to that, there were people who were coming into Zimbabwe illegally. And of course, a few were living illegally as well. That also exacerbated the new infections that were coming into Zimbabwe. Secondly, the most fundamental problem in Zimbabwe is lack of surveillance. COVID-19, again, like I said, it's a viral infection. You need good surveillance data to determine the concentration of the epidemic or where the infection is spreading faster than other places. What you do with surveillance gives you a snapshot of where the infection is going. Then you lock down that place. In this case, we know, for example, that Harare and Bulawayo have the highest number of infections. So what we need to do is to lock those places down, isolate people who have the virus and treat those that are sick, and ensure that no people are coming in or out of those areas. That will reduce the number of people who are infected. Right now, as we speak, Zimbabwe's hospital capacity has reached a saturation level. That means we no longer have bed capacity for people to go in and be treated. We no longer have enough ventilators for those who need respiratory assistance from these machines. Even people who have other common daily infections cannot go to hospitals because the hospitals are full. Secondly, we do not have enough PPE for our health workers. And as a result, if you have a single health worker who is working at a health facility who is not well protected, if they are carrying the infection, then they are bound to spread the virus to the people that they come across, both in their course of work at the hospital or the clinic, and in their household, in the communities. So these are some of the basic reasons. If you jump back to the United States of America, the key reason is that, again, we do not have capacity to do good disease surveillance. In the United States, we're not doing surveillance. We also are lagging way behind in terms of genetic sequencing of the virus to ensure that we know what type of mutations are circulating in the United States. If at all we have new infections that are coming into the country, we need to be able to determine where they are, lock them down, and ensure that they don't continue spreading. And lastly, I would say, as we all have had, there are new variants, the new mutations of this infection. We have the South African mutation, the UK mutation. Now we have a new Italian infection. There are several mutations that are going on. And these mutations complicate the spread of the infection because with each new mutation, the virus becomes much more able to spread easily. In other words, people are easily able to contract the virus, but you see less and less of the signs and symptoms. And because more people remain asymptomatic while carrying the virus, that enables them to keep on spreading the virus all over the place. So to close my first opening remarks, what we need is mass testing, like what China is doing. Wherever there are infections going high, we need mass testing. Zimbabwe, just like the United States, is not able to test the majority of people who need to be tested. And as long as we are not able to test people in huge numbers, the virus will continue spreading in our community, and more people will continue to die, especially those with comorbidities or underlying conditions.
Doctor, please stay on the line. I'll bring up my co-host, Jonga Kandemiri. Jonga.
Yes, Chris, I wanted to ask, kana kuti ndaida kuti vaguni vatsanangure nerurimi rwaamai iyo nyaya yekukwira kuri kuita uwandu hwevanhu vari kubatwa nechirwere cheCovid-19 muZimbabwe. Tinoona kuti uwandu hwakwira zvisati zvambotarisirwa, nokuti pazuva tichitarisira kuda kusvika kuchiuru kana ku1000. Izvi zvingadai zviri kukonzera, tingati here iyo utachiwana hutsva huri kunzi hwakawanikwa kuSouth Africa, kuBritain nekune dzimwe nyika, ungadai hwava muZimbabwe? Vaguni.
Utachiona iri nyore kuparadzira. Vanhu vakaitakura zvekare havarakidze umboo nekukurumidza, atingati masigns and symptoms. Zvinoreva kuti vazhinji vakatakura utachiona uhu vanenge vachifamba zvavo vasingarakidze kurwara, vachikwanisa kuparadzira utachiona uhu kwenguva yakareba. Ndosaka makuona kuti vanhu vazhinji vakurwara mazuva ano, vakubatwa neutachiona uhu. Munongonzwa kuti arwara maawa kana kuti arwara mazuva 2, 3, 4 atoshayika. Nekuti by the time yaanozozivikanwa kuti akatakura utachiona hweCovid-19, anenge atogara kwenguva yakareba akatakura utachiona zvisiri kuzivikanwa naiye asiri kuziva kuti ane utachiona. Ndochekutanga. Chechipiri, nyika yedu yeZimbabwe sezvakangoitawo kuno kuAmerica haina ukwanisiro hwekuita inonzi disease surveillance. Disease surveillance kutsvaga kuti utachiona huri kunyanya kupararira kunzvimbo dzipi. Zvinobatsirei? Zvinotibatsira kuti kana tikaziva kuti utachiona hwakanyanya kuwandira kunzvimbo dzakati, nzvimbo idzodzo ndo dzinoiswa muhigh lockdown. Zvoreva kuti vanhu vari munzvimbo idzodzo vanobva vaongororwa vese, motora vane utachiona movaisa kunze kwevasina, ivavo vogara muchivamonita, vanorwara vorapiwa, movhara zvakare kuti vanhu vari munharaunda iyoyo vasabude vachienda kune dzimwe nzvimbo nokuti ndo zvinoparadzira utachiona. Movharirawo zvakare vamwe vanhu vari kubva kune dzimwe nzvimbo kuti vasapinda munzvimbo iyoyo nokuti zvakare ndo zvinoparadzira utachiona. Sezvandambutaura kuna vaGande, hatisati tatanga kuona utachiona hwakawanda hwakaparadzirwa munguva yeKrisimasi negore idzva reNew Year. Izvozvo tichaona manhamba achikwira musvondo rechitatu kana rechina remwedzi unowandira tichienda musvondo rekutanga nerepiri remwedzi waFebruary. Ndo pamuchaona kuti uwandu hwevanhu vane utachiona huchakwira zvakanyanya, yatinoti rapid surging, nekuti vanhu ivava vakatapurana utachiona panguva izororei havasati vatanga kurwara uye kuratidza kuti vakatakura utachiona. Muchaona zvakare kuti vanhu vachatanga kufa, ndufu dzichawanda zvikuru kwazvo pamwedzi waFebruary tichienda kuna March, zvichiburikidza nevanhu vakabatwa neutachiona panguva yezororo irori ratiinaro iri. Zvese izvi zviri kuitika nokuti hatina ugadziriro hwakakwana. Tinodzokawo zvakare kuti denda iri ridzikiswe, tinofanha kuvandudza kuongorora kana kuti kuteswa kwevanhu munyika yese. Izvi zvinotibatsira kuti tizive kuti utachiona huri kupi. Zvinotibatsira kuti vane utachiona ndo vanobviswa kune vasina. Ndiyo nzira chete yatinokwanisa kudzivirira nayo. Uye ndoda kudzokorera kuti vanhu ngavarambei vachiteedzera kurudziro yeutano yekuti vanhu ngavapfekei zvekudzivirira kumeso kana atinoti maface mask, nekudzivirira miri yavo nemaoko avo, magloves, kushamba maoko. Zvose zvinogara zvichitaurwa izvi. Vanhu ngavasaita fatigue, ngavasaita kuneta, uye hurumende inofanira kuvandudza nyaya yepublic health messaging. Kune inonzi public health promotion and messaging. Izvozvo ndo zvinofanira kugara zvichitaurwa kumaredhiyo, kuzvitv, mumanewspaper, kwete zvekuswera vachiisa ngoma dzevanhu vanotamba zvisina nemusoro wese kana kutaura zvematongerwo enyika vanhu vachifa. Tinoda kuti munyika medu muve neutano hwakanaka. Haugone kuitika kana hurumende isiri kuenda mberi. Regai ndipete ndichiti leadership, utungamiriri hwedu hunoita kuti vanhu vatevedzere gwara rakanaka rehutano. Kana mukaona utungamiriri husiri kutora serious nyaya yeutachiona, tiri kuona vatungamiriri vemapazi ehurumende vari nezvigaro kumusoroko vachiita misangano, vachiita mapati, kunyange zvavo vamwe vavo vanenge vaine mamaski, vazhinji vanhu vavanenge vaikaungana navanenge vasina. Izvozvo zviri kuita super spreading, zviri kuparadzira utachiona kwenguva yakareba. Zvinoreva kuti vanhu onje kana vakaona vakuru vachifamba vasina kuzvidzivirira, zvinoitawo kuti naivo vaite lax kana kuti vasanyanye kutevedzera kurudziro yehutano. Tiri kuzviona kuno kuAmerica, tiri kuzviona kuZimbabwe, tiri kuzviona kune dzimwe nyika dziri kutadza kutevedzera gwara rehutano. Ndo zviri kuita kuti utachiona hurambe huchikwira nendufu dzichikwira munyika yedu yeZimbabwe. Saka tine basa guru chaizvo rekuti ndichipedzisira ndichiti hurumende inosungirwa kuti ipe vashandi vehutano vapiwe zvipfeko zvekuti vashande muzvipatara vakazvidzivirira, nekuti ndo mafirst line, mafront line workers edu. Kana vakabatira hutachiona ivavo, zvinoreva kuti munhu wese akuya kuchipatara kunyange anga achirwara nemwoyo kana negumbo kana nechii, apanjodzi yokubatira hutachiona. Uye vanoshanda muzvipatara kana vakarwara, nyika inosara isina vanorapa varwere. Zvese izvozvo zvinofanira kuiswa pamberi nehurumende, itombomisa mamwe mabasa nezvimwe zvinhu zvisina pundutso ichinangana nenyaya yehutano. Iye zvinezvi hutano ndiyo international and national emergency when it comes to Zimbabwe. Saka ndo nyaya yatinofanira kunge takanangana nayo, wombosiya tumwe tunhu twese utu.
Yes, Doctor, when it comes to contact tracing, what can you say about this issue, especially in Zimbabwe? Because we have seen large gatherings like the MGCT Congress, where we had some members ended up with coronavirus. but we didn't hear about the contact tracing. Is there anything like that in Zimbabwe?
Yes, contact tracing is available in Zimbabwe, but it's very lax, just like here in the United States. They are not able to fully engage in contact tracing. And in some cases, contact tracing becomes futile. Contact tracing is helpful within the first 72 hours of an infection being reported. If it happens after that, then it's pointless because it's hardly possible to track everyone after that period. It's much more effective within the first 12 to 24 hours after an infection is reported. That is to say, if Mr. Gande has been to grocery X and he turns out positive the next day or 2 days after, it is imperative for the Minister of Health to go to that grocery X, ensure that everybody who has been to that place has been followed through, is accorded testing, and by testing I mean high-level testing, which is PCR testing, not the common antigen testing, and ensure that everybody who came in contact with everybody who has been in that place is also tested. However, again, it comes to the question of priorities and capacity. If you wait for too long, like what we saw happening at Sheraton or at other meetings, if you wait for too long, it becomes a mute task because you can't possibly follow up all those people. That's when disease surveillance becomes important, because then you are able to say, even though we are not able to contact trace everybody, at least we know where the hotspots are. For example, we know that Matabeleland and Harare are the highest hotspots in Zimbabwe. These are the places that should be totally locked down until we ensure that we have found out everyone who is positive and ensure that they've survived and ensure that they are following public health priorities and messages, and ensure that no other people from outside of these areas go into the areas, and those who are already in the lockdown areas cannot go out. Until we do that, we'll continue to see the spread of this epidemic, and we'll continue to see more and more people dying. There are some countries we have capacity we can work with. For example, China. In China, for example, there were 5 people who tested positive in Shanghai, and they were the Chinese government, within 5 days, they tested 9.6 million people. That is government commitment, and we don't have that in Zimbabwe, just like we don't have that here in the United States. So we need to be serious, otherwise we will lose many, many, many more people.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Please do stand by. Jonga, we have our other guest, Pearl Matibe. She's now available.
Okay, Chris, I'm sure she can hear me. Ms. Matibe, can you hear me? Or Chris, you can talk to her from that end.
Hello, can you hear me, Ms. Matibe? No, she can't hear me.
Okay, maybe you can drop me, or then you bring her up on the stream.
Okay, let's see what happens. Miss Matibe, are you there? Hello, Miss Matibe? Hello? I think we are having issues with Miss Matibe. We can't seem to be getting her audio there.
So while we wait for her, Chris, maybe we can bring in Mr. Tim Muringai. Vamuringai vari parunhare vari muno muAmerica, chizvarwa cheZimbabwe chiri muno muAmerica. Vamuringai, tokugamuchirai muchirongwa chedu. Vamuringai, nyaya tiri kutanga kumbokurukura yechirwere cheCovid-19 kuZimbabwe. Zvii zvamungataura tichiona kuti uwandu huri kukwira zvakanyanya. Tanzwa Dr. Frank Guni vachitsananguraiwo kuti tiri kutotarisira kuti uwandu huchakwira kudarika huri kuwanikwa izvezvi hwekuma 800 900, nekuti vari kuti iwo zvakapararira kwakaita chirwere munguva yezororo rekisimusi negoredzva, michero yacho yakuda kuchitanga kuchibuda manje zvakakohwewa kubva mukusangana kwakaita vanhu ikoko, nekuti vanhu vakawanda vakaita kufamba kwakakura zvikuru kubva munyika yakaita seSouth Africa, kuno kuri kutyirwa kunzi kwaita chirwere ichochi chaita humwe utachiwana hutsva huri kunetsa pasi rose. Munoti Vamuringai?
Ndinoda kutenda vagoni vanyatsotsanangura kuti chirwere ichi chakamira sei uye chinotransportwa zvakaita sei. Saka ndinovimba kuti vanhu vari kuZimbabwe vateerere yambiro yana chiremba vese nevese vari qualified kuve vachitaura about these diseases, nokuti tinoona kuti ignorance inowanzokonzeresa ndufu dzakawandisa sezvo zvataurwa navaguni. Patati chingoda kugadzirisa hedu ndepengoti takachikumbiro kuti government yedu neministry of health dzinyatsokwanisa kubudisa masoko aya, especially kumarowa kunenge kusina kana TV kana maradios kana inonzi awareness, health awareness, kuti nyatsoziva kuti zveshuwa utachiwana uyu uri kunetsa nyika dzose pasi rose. Vataura vabata futi nenyaya yecontact tracing nekuisolatwa kwevanhu. Takachikumbira kuti ipapo futi government inyatsowana mukana wekuti ingakwanise kudzidzisa vanhu kuti zvakanaka kuve une hama dzako neshamwari dzako muchiita zvamunoita kana kufara kana kuenda nana gochi but nguva inoyi haisiriyo nguva yacho. Vanhu ngavageze maoko, vamaintaine social distancing iri recommended. Saka pari zvino tirongoti kune vanhu vese vari kunyika yedu nemuno muAmerica patinogara, ngatingotora yambiro yatiri kupiwa nemascientists nemadoctors vanenge vaguni kuti tive neupenyu une utano mangwana.
Tinotenda zvikuru vaMuringai. Thank you so much. Chris, kana uine mubvunzo kuna vaMuringai tisati tapinda kune imwe nyaya tiinayo manheru anhasi.
Okay, Mr. Muringai, what would you say about the cases, the rising cases in Zimbabwe, especially when we look at the current situation where we understand the hospitals have actually run out of oxygen? What would you say to that?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gandhi. I would actually encourage our people in Zimbabwe to take heed of the notices that the government and the Ministry of Health have been passing around. We just heard Dr. Guni here explaining the origins of the disease and what causes the disease. So he's talked about social behavior, which a lot of countries are kind of struggling with because, you know, as human beings, we cannot be restrained into houses for so long. But we are advising our people, since our country is economically challenged and we are having issues before the COVID hit the country, to just pay heed and take notice of the notices that are being sent from the Ministry of the Health and the government. We would also implore the government to secure more PPEs and contact tracing. I know it was covered by Dr. Guni, and just social behavior adjustment just for this time till they can get the disease under control. So we just implore people and the government to have more education and make sure that everybody is taking heed that this disease is not a joke or just a disease that affects the rich or just the poor. It affects everybody. We have seen here in America where hospitals are out of capacity, they have to bring extra ventilators and all that. In Zimbabwe, I was going to ask if anybody knows what had happened to the invention at the Harare Institute of Technology, where they had made new ventilators. How many actually came out of that program? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vamurengai. Tinotenda. Chris.
Yes, Jonga, Miss Matibe is back again. I hope this time we will be able to hear her properly. Miss Matibe, welcome to the show. Thank you. Jonga, you want to fire first?
Yes, but I can't hear.
Oh, you can't. Okay. All right. Miss Matibe, we are discussing coronavirus and, of course, the impeachment of President Trump. Now, what is your take on the impeachment? We understand that a number of Republican members of the House are going to also vote for the impeachment. What's your take on that?
Thank you very, very much for your question. Right now, actually, it is 19 minutes after 11 o'clock in the morning here in Washington, D.C. So I may have to leave very shortly because right now the House Rules Committee is in the process of voting in terms of the actual rules that will determine and be used in the impeachment. But let me just quickly explain the process of what has been happening this morning. So beginning from 9 o'clock, the Rules Committee in the House of Representatives was meeting and has been meeting and debating the actual rules themselves. And so within the first hour of that meeting, as I said, these rules just determined like the process of how they're going to go about the impeachment. They were debating that so that they can come into agreement. Certain pieces of, like the letter from Representative Liz Cheney was introduced as evidence, as well as an article from the New York Times was also introduced as evidence this morning, and they were accepted without objection. So this morning, what they were debating was House Resolution 24. And basically, House Resolution 24 is the one impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. And so in the 107th, and the next Congress is the 117th Congress. So the person that started speaking this morning was the chairman of the House Rules Committee, that is Representative James McGovern. And what we are seeing, I'm just going to break it down very quickly. In terms of the rules, we know for right now, as of right now, that at least 5 Republicans have confirmed that they are going to vote in favor of impeachment. What does that mean? It tells us that more than 70% of Republicans are not in favor of impeaching Donald Trump as of right now. What am I hearing and what are we hearing in terms of discussions that seem to be happening in the background that are maybe not yet in the mainstream media right now, is that we are hearing that maybe about 10 to 20 Republicans, when everything is said and done, that might still decide to vote for impeachment. As of right now, only 5. That means that Donald Trump still has a very big majority of Republicans in his party who do not want to see him impeached. The president himself is still, as of this moment, determined not to resign from his post as president. Mm-hmm. And so that's my quick update for you right now. All that has been happening this morning is a debate back and forth about the rules and 2 pieces of key evidence, the letter from Cheney and the news article from the New York Times. The other thing that I'm anticipating is going to happen this afternoon, around between 2 to 4 o'clock this afternoon, we are going to see an additional vote. Politically, this is important because some Republicans have the view that if President Trump is impeached, it could cause more political problems in terms of how divided things are at the moment. It could incite, the QAnon and the Proud Boys and so on. We know as of this morning that Jared Kushner the president's son-in-law has been trying to help the president gain access to other social media platforms since he was banned from Twitter. And these are the platforms where he can speak to his followers, are those types of platforms where extreme groups are still able to speak more freely here in the United States. In terms of the speed, one key issue that was being debated in the House this morning was this issue of speed. Many Republicans got up this morning, representatives in the House Rules Committee, and argued that they are not in favor of how quickly the Democrats are moving. They're accusing the Democrats of rushing, that there's not yet enough evidence. There was a lot that was debated, citing examples in history where impeachment was rushed and the consequences of rushing the impeachment and so on. One hurdle is that even if the House ends up having a majority vote today, with this impeachment, the Senate is in recess. And so Mitch McConnell in the Senate will still not be able then to take up this impeachment and do anything about it before Biden comes into office. Biden will come into office at 12 o'clock noon next Wednesday, January the 20th. So at 1 o'clock next Wednesday, that's when the Senate and so on might be able to start introducing this bill. That's when they would have time then. This is the only time then they can then introduce what came from the House into the Senate. Nothing can be done before then. Senate is in recess right now. That's what I can give you as a quick update as to the debate happening in Congress this morning since 9 o'clock.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. What do the numbers mean? Because it looks like there's a lot of talk about the numbers, yet we know that the Democrats have the majority in the House. So what's the fact about the numbers when we know they already have them?
That is good. So the reason I'm mentioning the numbers and why it's important is because this gives us an explanation as to what is happening politically inside the Republican Party. And so when I say more than 70% of Republicans right now are standing with President Donald Trump and not in favor of impeaching him, is because it points to the fact that the White House still has significant influence over the majority of the Republican Party. It also implies that many of these Republicans, legislators, lawmakers, are still very fearful of President Trump. They're very, very fearful of President Trump. So if you want to understand the internal dynamics of how the politics and the political landscape, and there's some shifting dynamics going on inside the Republican Party, but President Trump still has very much control in there. You have seen, we are hearing that Mitch McConnell seems to be happy that if impeachment was to move forward, that would be one way that the Republican Party itself can part ways with President Trump. However, here's what I would say to that. Even if they do all this, what they want to do to President Trump, it will not change the thinking and the strength of his following. It might even increase his base, the people that follow him. And Republicans still need that base in order for that same base to be able to vote for themselves for re-election. We've got midterm elections coming up in 2 years in 2022. I can tell you right now that the Democrats today, or was it yesterday, already put out their first election campaign advert for the 22 midterm election. And so we're already looking at those people thinking about their own re-elections in 2 years' time for the midterms. And so, yes, it has significance in terms of the direction that the party might take, and in terms of when Biden does come into office next week, how tough or what Biden will be facing in terms of trying to unify the country.
Okay, thank you, please. Yes, Jonga, we now joined by another guest, Raphael Mtomben, all the way from Texas. Maybe you want to pose the question?
Yes, welcome to our show, Mr. Mtomben.
Yeah, go ahead and ask Jonga. You answer.
Yes, Mr. Mtomben, what's your take looking at the impeachment process that is currently underway in the House of Representatives at the Capitol Hill, where they are voting to impeach President Donald Trump, although some Americans are of the opinion that this will further divide the country?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm not really sure what exactly this is going to transpire to be, but the truth about the whole matter is that the country is already divided. I don't understand the people who would say this is going to further divide the country. This country is already divided. Because if you look at the voting patterns, it will be like half for Biden and Trump. 74 million each. I can give them that portion. And then there is this overlap of the votes that pushed Biden to the finish line. So the impeachment, as it were, I think it's just a statement as far as I'm concerned. The Democrats are trying to make a statement that President Trump should be held responsible for what happened at the Capitol House, the insurrection that took place there. So to me, I find it as a statement that he should not finish his term scot-free as if he didn't do anything. So if they are meeting today to impeach him, they want to put a stamp on his presidency that he was impeached again for doing something that he did to incite the people to invade that heart of America, the White House. This is what I see myself, because honestly, the days are already numbered.
I don't know if we're having any technical problems. Can you hear me, Mr. Mtomben? Mr. Mtomben?
To the upper house, then it will register as an impeachment.
Okay. Hold on, please do stay on the line, Mr. Mtomben, while I try and bring up my co-host, Jonga Kandemir. Jonga, our other guests seem to have dropped off. So now we only have Mr. Mtomben.
And Mr. Tim Muringai is still online here. Maybe we can hear from Mr. Muringai. Muringai, zvamungataura pamusoro pedanho riri kutorwa nedare reparamende remuamerica rekupomera mutungamiri wenyika waDonald Trump mhosva yekukonzera mhirizhonga yakaitika kuCapitol kana kuti kumuzinda weparamende svondo rapera. Zvinhu zvamungataura.
Ndiri kuona ini kuti democracy inenge ichiri kurarama muno munyika, nokuti zvanga zvada kuzamwa nemabato ari extremist in the Republican Party. Not the Republican Party, yes, but ivo vari extreme vanga vazama kuita yatinoti iyo coup kana kutora kochisimba kweutongerwe hwenyika. Saka tikuona apa kuti vhoti yeimpeachment iyi varuda ivo kuti zvisazokororwazve nemumwe mutungamiri kana in the future angada kuzama zvinhu zvakaita kudai so. Nokuti zvatikaona vhiki rapera iri kwanga kusiri kururama kwezvinhu zvakanaka. Ivo vhoti yapera, mavhoti acertifyiwa averengwa katatu kunenge state inenge Georgia. Asi mutungamiri wenyika vaDonald Trump vaifunga kuti ivo nokuti uwandu hwevanhu vanga vachivasapota vaikwanisa kunge vachichinja mamiriro akaita election. Ndoona inini kuti America nekufamba kwairi kuita nemutemo, ndaona inini kuti varamba kuvhundutsirwa kana kutyityidzirwa nemunhu anenge ari president kana muridzi ane mari kunge kuti aite maitiro ake. Saka tinongoti zviri kuitwa kuti mavhu vari kuita ari along partisan line. Ivo vari kuramba vachisapota mutungamiri wavo. Ndikushaya kuti kutya here kana kuti ameno nyaya iripo behind the scenes yatisiri kuiona. Nokuti taona kuti mavhoti avapo a220 to impeach, which is majority, vanga vachida 218 anyway. And then my Republicans have the 203 along party lines vachiramba kuti Trump vabviswe. Maidaba.
Asi vamringai ndikande mumvunze ipapo. Tiri kuona kuti vaTrump vasarurwa nemazuva anokwana kuita 7 kana manomwe kuti temu yavo isvike kumagumo. Vadii kungomirira vaTrump vopedza temu yavo voenda zvavo?
Ndiri kuona kuti chiri kutyiwa panapa ndechekuti kana munhu akaita zvikaruka Trump tinoziva kuti vakabata iwo anonzi manuclear codes, and tinoziva kuti vanga vachida kukonzeresa mhirizhonga nedzimwe nyika dzemaarabs zvakangodaro. Saka tiri kuona kuti kudyiwa kwavakaita uku vanenge vasasafunga zvakanaka, nokuti ivo vakakurudzira marioters ese aya kuti anopinda mucapital building. Saka chari kutyisa apa inenge deterrence kana kuti kudzivirira kuti kutoitika zvimwe zvinhu nyika rese. Ndo zvavaroda kuavoida kuona kwangu.
Ko iyi nyaya yekuti kuvapomera mhosva ikoku kana kuvabvisa pachigaro kunowedzera kupatsanuka kwaita America kana kuti vanhu veAmerica kusawirirana kunogona kutowedzera kuenda mberi. Munoti
race relations kana kuti kubatana kwenyika kuve kuri nani is when ivo varungu vanga vachisapota kana kuti masupporters aDonald Trump amukondeme ivo pachavo kuti zvawaita izvi handizvo zviri pamutemo wenyika, handizvo zvakatikabvumirana muconstitution yeAmerica. Saka zvekuti zvinokonzeresa kuti kupatsanurwe sezvo vamutombeti vataura earlier kuti nyika ino yagara iri divided, but kunoda kuti majority isumuke itaure kuti aiwa zvamuri kuita mukuru handizvoba, tinoenda nemutemo muno. Saka kusvikira ivo maRepublicans party yavo yavanomirira kana kuti majority yevarungu vamira nevanhu vese kuti zvamuri kuita handizvo, vakaregera kumubvisa marelations anongoramba akadaro. But kunoda kuti masenior eparty yemaRepublican party ndofunga pamwe maformer president ana George Bush kana nani vakuru vauye vataure kuti izvi kumaAmerica ngatibatanei lofunga tingangokwanisa kutanga kuti
wamaringa ifone yenyu iri kumboenda yachibreaka pano nepapo asi ndofunga Chris ane mubvunzo waangangoda kuti mupindure nesindebele. Christopher, kulunga.
Mnumzana Mringa, wena ukubona kwakho ubona ungani kuyini okubangela ukuthi bathi bona bafuna ukuthi umongameli Trump asuke esihlalweni kona sokusele amalanga ayisikhombisa nje kuphela?
Mina mbona bethutshisa ukuthi welizwe useqalisa ilokhuzeni udlame labantu abaningi, so kathesi sokukhoza ukuthi abantu bengawelelani and sokusiba lama-heightened race lama countries amaningi. Siyakwazi thina ukuthi umongameli welizwe nuclear codes and siyakwazi ukuthi bake baba lenkinga lelizwe le-Iran lamanye amazwe khona ngale, so bayasaba ukuthi bangamyeka akhonapho for the next 8 days or nalawa malanga asalileyo. Anything might happen ngoba akasela into ayesabayo okwakathesi.
Okay. Yesizwe kumnumzana Mthombeni. Mnumzana Mthombeni, ungathini wena ngalokhu okwenzakalayo? Kathi bamesabani uTrump bona amalunga ebandla lakhe? Sibona sasicabanga ukuthi kufika isikhathi lesi bonke bazathi hayi kaphume, kodwa hayi sibona balutshwana bathi kaphume. Kungakuhamba njani?
Angazi kusekhaya ngabe sithi ulomuthi ngoba angazi ukuthi kathi lami angikuzwisisi sibili. Okwakhuluma kudala lapha ukuthi mina ngingadubula umuntu lapha ku Main Street i-support yami ngeza kisuke kimi bagcina belokhu benilandela kuphela. Sasingathi kasimuzwa ukuthi kathi ukhulumani. Angikwazi sibili ukuthi kati ubabambe wabathini, kodwa ke ngibona ngathi i-Republicans ngokwazo i-party ingathi iyasuka kulokhu ebiyikho khona ngaphambili. Ungakhangela lapha isaphethwe ngoBush kusiye emuva yayingenje njengalokhu eyikho khona khathesi. Kuthi ukuthi lo undoda uthe wafika la ngamadlabuzana akhe wazuza abantu abaningi, abanye abantu bengasalandeli ama-Republicans. So ngaleyo ndlela bese kusenza ukuthi ukhanye kungathi bayamsekela kakhulu. Ngoba okunye engikubonayo ukuthi ungumuntu lwana owafika wakhuluma into ababengathi balayo ehlezi ngaphansi, engathi mina wafika wakhuluma ngowakhangela abantu ukuziphatha kwakhe, ukuziphatha lokho kobandlululo, lokho kokweyisa abanye abantu, okokuthi America yiyo i-America ngeyabamhlophe, lokho okunye ngabantu konke lokho akusikho bantu lokho. So khonokho kutsho njalo wahle waqhumba khona kanye lapho uluma khona. Yikho engikubonayo mina ukuthi yikho bemsekela kangaka besehluleka ukuthi babone la nxa ephambanisa. Ake sithi siphe nje umzekeliso omncane ukuthi khathesi ezibona sibili uyakwazi sibili engqondweni zakhe lenhlizweni yakhe ukuthi ukhetho lolu
Mthombeni, uyangizwa? It looks like we have a small technical fault there. We'll try and bring Mr. Mthombeni once more and see if we can be able to talk to him. Mr. Mtombeni.
Voting awenu lina abamhlophe. Yikuba bona behlanya so bona vele lokho ukuthi uBiden uwiniswe ngama-votes avela ku community le emnyama abakuvele abafunda ukuzwa khonokho bathi akusikho ma-votes lokho. Kanti-ke ngama-votes sibili ama-votes sibili afana nalawa.
Okay, thank you so much. Ngabamba khonapo. Jonga, we are fast running out of time. Can Mr. Mungai, your last word? We are just about to get to the end of the show.
Muringai, your last word. We are looking at the impeachment. What do you think will come out of this process?
Thank you very much. I think Donald Trump will be impeached. I don't know whether the Senate will follow, and because you need, I think they said 67 senators to vote, which means 17 Republicans crossing from the Republican side. But what I can see is, I think at the end of it all, if Donald Trump is successfully removed from office, whether today or in 8 days when Joe Biden is confirmed, there will be a different kind of governance in America, of which I'm looking forward to. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, Jonga, let me give Mr. Mtombeni his final words. Mr. Mtombeni, we are almost at the end of the show. What's your last word? How can you describe the process that's going on right now? Because we understand that this is the only president who has been impeached twice in one term. Mr. Mtombeni? Jonga, it looks like we are having
Vamuringai, neururimi rwaamai tiri kuona kuti vaTrump ndo mutungamiri aitwa inganzi impeachment kana kuti kupomerwa mhosva kaviri aka ndekechipiri aka. Zvinhu zvamunotaura tichitarisa utongo kana kuti nhaka ichasiyiwa navaTrump yekutonga kwavakaita makore mana, tichiona kuti mutungamiri aita vangadai vasingazoburitswa zvavo pabasa nenyaya yeimpeachment iyo inokuti inogona kutadza kuvaburitsa, asi zvekuti vaitwa impeach kaviri kana kuti vapomerwa mhosva kaviri zvinovasiya papi munhoroondo yevatungamiri veAmerica?
Ini ndiri kuona kuti zvakanaka muupenyu kuti ushande nekugarisana nevamwe zvakanaka, nokuti nyika inenge America inonakidzira nekunetsera pakuti vanoteedzera mutemo nemagariro akanaka, uye ndiri kuona vaTrump vanziwo nemamwe mapundits kunzi ndiwo the worst leader America has ever faced. Vanga vasingafanirwe kusvika pachinhano ichi chekuimpeachwa the second time, nekuti kana warohwa kekutanga unofanira kunge uchiadjusta kana kuti kugadzirisa. Vanga vachida kuita zvemhirizhonga uye zvisingabvumiswe muno rino nyika. Saka ndinongoti pachauya vaBiden apa in 8 days kana vaTrump akabviswa nhasi kana iunzwa vaBiden inyika ino zvikuru nyaya dzedemocracy. Kumira Democrats neRepublicans zvanhasi I think is a new beginning, because tinoona kuti first impeachment anga ari maDemocrats ega ega. Nhasi tanzwa kunzi kuchacrossa 5 and then majority leader Mitch McConnell vati ivo vari kuentertaina kana kuti vari kukurudzira kuti munhu wese avote neconscience yake, zvanga zvisipo the last impeachment.
Aiwa, tinotenda zvikuru vaMuringai. Thank you so much. Rambai muripo. Ndinogona kunge mwangu aine mashoko maviri matatu. Chris, usati wavhara chirongwa kune mashoko ere ekuudza vamuringai?
I think he's covered almost everything that I wanted to hear. So I don't know about Mr. Mtombeni, if he has a last word. Mr. Mtombeni, we couldn't get you last time. Maybe you have a last word before we wrap up the show.
Yeah, well, I think I'm almost done. I agree with the last speaker. What is going to happen is this guy is going to be impeached 2 times in a year. That shows really some kind of leadership that I don't understand. Now, I think it is going to go down to record. That's what they want. It might spill over to after, as an ex-president. They might get him after that. But for now, I don't see the process being completed in the next 7 days. It's going to move from the Congress to the Senate, and then from the Senate, there is this long trial, which is not going to happen. I don't know. I might be wrong, but I don't see it happening in the next 7 days. But the dent has been put on his back.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mtombeni, for joining us. Have yourself a wonderful day. And like I said, our show is coming to an end. Jonga, let's wrap it up.
Thank you so much, Chris. Tinotenda zvikuru kune vose vakwanisa kupinda muchirongwa chedu. Dr. Frank Guni vatipa jekeso pamusoro pechirwere cheCovid-19. Muzvare Pearl Mative vatipa maonero avo pane zviri kuitika muno muAmerica kuCongress uku. Koitiwo vatimu Muringai vanga vachibata kwose kuCovid-19 pamwe nezviri kuitika kuCongress nava Mutombeni. Ini ndini Jonga Kandemiri ndichiti murare zvakanaka vateereri.
And I'm Chris Gande, wishing you a pleasant rest of the week. Until we meet again next week, good night.